Hello, 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 Real Money Coach family. It is 8 o'clock and it is Thursday. And so it is Real Money Coach time. Real Money Coach time. Listen, I'm so excited. What I love about this whole platform is I can be in any part of the country and we get to do this show. And I get to see all of you wonderful people. So, what I want you to do right now is in the chat box, let us know where you're watching from, what city, what state that you're watching from, and just say hello. Let us know where you are. I'm actually in Jackson, Michigan right now. And I know that we have people from all over. So, my guy Chad, when he comes on, man, I'm in maize and blue territory, just to let you know. And I just want to just pause here for a second and just really just want to tell everyone thank you. On Facebook, on social media, there's been an outpouring from so many of you that watch the show, and so the fact that my wife's grandmother passed, and so we're here in Michigan. But I just want to thank you for your condolences and all those types of things. Dr. Benita Harris, thank you for being here. Miss April McCants, thank you for being here. Timothy Day, thank you for being here. Dr. Benita Harris, thank you for your condolences, and everyone. Listen, it's just great to have such wonderful people. Ruth Bell, Miss Ruth, your ears must have been burning today. I was talking about you today on a national show that I was on, just talking about how wonderful you are and how you're here each and every week. Thank you, April. Thank you all. And I am excited about tonight because I was introduced to our special guest tonight by someone that we got to get on the show too. His name is AJ Joyner, and you guys will find more about him later. We're definitely going to have him on the show. But just to give you the idea, I'm working with him on the book that's going to be released coming out in October. And so we're going to have him on the show to just kind of share what he does. But he introduced me to our guest tonight, and she's just a wonderful person. We've spoken a few times, and just awesome. But as you know, Felicia, thank you for being here. Where you from, Felicia? Put it in the chat box unless I'm missing it. And I know a lot of y'all be watching because you text me afterwards and said, "Oh, the show was great." I said, "Well, you didn't put anything in the chat box. Let us know you're watching. Say hello." My nephew Kevin and others who do that every week. So listen, even my mother-in-law, she watches every week. She never puts anything in the chat box, but I know she's there. So thank you all for doing that. But I am going to bring on Miss Michelle Mitchell. Again, you guys know her. She's been with us for, I guess a couple months now as the special, wonderful co-host with me. And we just have a great time together. And so let's bring on Michelle and see how Michelle's doing.
Hello, Tony.
Hey, Michelle, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing
Good, good.
well. Listen, it's Thursday night.
It's
You give me
Thursday night.
yeah. Listen, because we're both in Michigan, we were talking about like, okay, can we get a kind of do this in person instead of virtually? But I think it was easier for both of us to say, hey, let me just get up on this.
Right.
Let me just do this virtually and make it because who's going to make that hour drive? You guys gonna make
Right.
it? We gonna make it? How's all
Uh,
that gonna work?
I
But
know.
we're just here as we normally are.
Yes.
And so, Michelle, just glad to have you. Thank you
Hello,
so much.
Dr. Benita.
Yeah, see you now. You knowing all of them.
I
They
know.
Michelle, it's like Tony. You don't even have to show up, man. Just let Michelle do this thing, right?
Okay.
Listen, Michelle, just thank you too. For coming over Monday. Being with your bestie.
Of
We're
course.
celebrating the life of her grandmother this weekend and on Monday, and so you just that ride and die for us, right? So
Yeah.
friends for life, friends for
Yes, we
life.
are. Friends for
Yeah.
life.
So we're going
Yes.
to be together this coming weekend for this
Yes.
occasion, and then we're going to be together next
Next
weekend
weekend.
in a little vacation,
I know.
a little long weekend in Caribbean, a little
Yes.
Caribbean visit. So
I'm excited.
yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
I'm real excited. Well, Michelle, I tell you, let's just talk about this real quickly before we bring on our guests, because we got to
Mhm.
give ample time tonight.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
I mean, just in the green room, and we were talking
Mhm.
backstage. Man, I don't know if an hour is going to be enough to get all this in,
I
right?
know,
Because it
right?
was just such a rich conversation,
Mhm.
even in just our introductions
Yeah.
and that type of thing. Thank you, Alice Martin, for being here. We appreciate you. So I think last week I mentioned that I'd be doing some things with the Power Networking Conference. And
Mhm.
so we've had the Power Networking Conference. The kickoff day was yesterday. They call it the first day the bonus day.
Oh.
Conference really starts on Thursday. Wednesday's the bonus day. I always tell Dr. Frazier, hey, I want to do my thing on the bonus day, right? I like the bonus day. I like being up on the front end before all the other stuff gets started. But you've sat in on a couple sessions.
I
What's
have.
been your thoughts?
Man, if you haven't attended before, you should definitely plan to attend next year
Yeah.
because the conference, the information is so rich and is very rich for our community. It's
Mhm.
what we need. The basis is financial literacy for our population. And like the people that he's had, like when I've been in and out, but they have been excellent, excellent, excellent information. Excellent
Yeah.
information. I missed you yesterday just by like 5 minutes,
Well, we got the
but
recording. We can send it to you.
I
Yeah.
know,
Well, you've
right?
already seen it anyway. So
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
you already seen it anyway.
Yeah.
But
So it was, it's really good. It's very empowering, and it's taken this whole platform like the real money coach, like, and you have all of these different experts to
mhm.
feed into all the different areas. So I've enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Dr. Bell, thank you for being here. Camilla Bell, wonderful person out in Fresno, California. Thank you for being here. Um, One of the things I noticed about the Power Networking Conference is I've been telling you now for probably 3 years,
3 years
Michelle,
probably.
you got
Yeah.
to go. You got
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
You got to go.
Yeah.
The first time I went, and even our guest has some experience with it as well, the first time I went, it was just unbelievable to me
Mhm.
that we brought that many people. That was a live event, right?
Mhm.
1,100 Black professionals from
Mhm.
teachers to entrepreneurs all
Mhm.
together and getting this great information. So
Yeah.
I'm a fan. Next year, it will be live again in Houston, Texas. So
Okay.
all my H-Town people, we're heading that way. We're going to go back. And I think part of that is to fulfill the contract with the hotel. Of course, we had a
Mhm.
contract for 2 years. Virtually, that meant that we still got to go back to Houston for another year to
Right.
fulfill that contract.
Mhm.
But I'm looking forward to it. It's a powerful, powerful event. So
Yeah, it is powerful. Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Well, listen, we're almost a quarter after already, and I
Wow.
want to talk about our guest that's coming on. And again, she was introduced to me by Mr. AJ, who's awesome in his own right. And he tells me, he says, you have to meet Patricia Bailey. You got to meet Pat Bailey. And he says, you guys are kind of in the same field because as we're writing the book and we're talking about things like long-term care and how to financially be prepared for it, how to protect yourself from the spin down process, he's like, you got to talk to Pat. And so he made an email introduction, and she was very I thank God for her because she reached out, I reached out, and then I went a while, and then she reached out, and finally we connected. And he was absolutely right. She's a dynamite person, and one of her businesses, kind of platform she has, is called She Ages Well, and it's again very interesting because at the time that I met her, um, Lisa and I we did our Midwest tour where we went to Indianapolis, saw my sister, went to Chicago, saw my 95-year-old aunt, saw my sister in Muskegon, Michigan, and saw her grandma here, 92. And to think now, less than 2 months later, Granny
Mhm.
has transitioned. And so what a wonderful time. We're so glad we took that trip. But that was during the time I also met Pat Bailey,
Oh.
and understanding what she was about and the mission in terms of She Ages Well. It's a beauty line. She's a caregiver coach. And, you know, we love coaches. And she's been vice president in some major firms. She's worked with companies like McDonald's, Walgreens, the Potter House. Shout out to Bishop T.D. Jakes, Cornerstone Baptist Church, and Proline International. 17 years of leading hair care brands, and then now is also bringing this passion for caregiving and coaching. And you can just tell where her heart is. So, with no other further ado, I would like to introduce to the Real Money Coach family tonight, Mrs. Pat Bailey.
Oh my gosh, that is so wonderful of an introduction. I feel like I need to write you a check. I mean, I am talking to financial people, okay? So it would be very appropriate, right? I mean, thank you guys for having me on the show, and much love also to, of course, AJ, the great connector that he is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A pleasure to you, and much love to your family and prayers. And I'm excited to engage tonight with your audience, and it's nice to meet you also, Michelle.
Yes,
for the first
you
time.
too,
We kind of got into our conversation so much in the green room, we got caught up a little bit, right?
I know we did.
A little bit. And we already know that this is going to be an energized conversation, because Pat is you're like an energizer bunny, right? I can just feel the energy oozing from you. And so I love that. I love that passion that you have, and all the. So what I really like to start off with is just kind of tell everyone who Pat Bailey is, and kind of your backstory, and we'll just kind of take it from there and see where the Lord leads our conversation this evening. I moved to see if I was
right. I think she froze.
Oh, there we go.
Did I freeze? Okay, so here, just in case, I'm gonna go at it so we don't get any more freezing going on. I am in Texas, so I would not be surprised if we have more outages down here. Everyone knew about the February story. So the way in which to understand who I am as an individual, and that, yes, I am a caregiver coach. I am also what's called a certified belief therapist, meaning that I actually incorporate my teachings from a biblical basis. But along with that, I'm also a certified dementia practitioner. But when I really think about it, I've been a caregiver most of my life. When you really understand who you are as an individual, and the way in which you play and the way in which you engage with your parents, you get a sense of understanding who you're going to be. And I remember clearly one day my mom was sick and I wanted to go outside and play. I could hear the double dutch outside in the yard. My brothers were already gone. They had their little bags of marbles. They out the door. And I'm like, Mom, can I go outside? Right? I'm from Chicago, guys, west side of Chicago, a couple other places as well. But she, for some reason, from her internal spirit, says, and audibles to a 6-year-old, who's going to care for me when I get older? And my hand is on the doorknob, and I turn around and I look at her. I'm like, Mommy, I will. I was marked then. I was a caregiver for my dad, and then I became a caregiver for my mom. I was that senior level executive traveling 52 trips a year, launching major hair care brands. I've been in hair care actually for 40 years total. And I ended up saying, in the case of my mom, who was in Chicago, I was in Dallas, and I'm like, I got it. Send her here. And it became a journey, and it changed my life. And actually, in this instance, it became the life that I was always born to live. And so here we are today.
Wow.
That's awesome. So
that's
been in your purpose.
Yeah.
Since, there's something about, I knew you even when you were in your mother's womb.
Right.
And named you a prophet, right? And
Yes.
so I think we're all prophets in our own areas, in our
Yeah.
own places of expertise. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. I didn't know that you grew up in Chicago. Michelle grew up in Ben Harbor, Michigan, which is
Right.
not far from Chicago. A couple
Not
hours.
far at all. Yeah.
Not at all.
And when I was in Illinois, I was in Tinley Park, which is actually kind of a southwest suburb of Chicago. And so, so you're married. You're doing all these major hair brands, and you're
Yes.
traveling. You have the C-level travel schedule, right? You know, you go in all these different places, and then it comes up that you need to provide some care for your mom. Am I kind of
Yes
right a little bit?
And that's correct. So there is a hierarchy within a family structure, and I do this talk on navigating sibling relationships. We were laughing about it when we were in the green room. Where you
there, because we need to get there. Let's
we need to get there.
Let's go there.
So, full disclaimer, this is not my siblings, meaning that though I raised my hand, it would be typical for me to take the assignment of my life. Does that make sense? I am a strong believer in God and purpose and plan, and it is clear to me that my being an entrepreneur my entire life and working for entrepreneurial companies, meaning I was at Luster, I was at SoftSheen, and then at Proline as vice president of marketing and vice president of sales, that I could do and I could lead and do this because I'm just anal. I'm the middle child. I was always in everybody's mess.
You the glue that keeps them together.
But you know what, Tony? What became interesting to me in that I am a marketing person, and you know, when you guys go to the shelf and you buy these products, there's a lot behind trying.
There's a whole lot that they put into that. Yes,
create that environment at the shelf. But so you become process oriented. I mean, I'm dealing with professional brands. I'm dealing with retail brands. I'm dealing with the technical aspect of the business. I'm working on the complete supply chain ops, running analytics as a business as well. And my thinking was, I got into this in, mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I think in about 98.
Okay.
There was nothing that was for me. And I was amazed, even within the EAP programs of corporations, there was nothing that was credible, because when you get slammed in the middle of this space, it's almost as if a diagnosis of Alzheimer's is the diagnosis of caregiving for the family. So you go from a diagnosis for the individual, but now here is family, here is community, and I was in trouble. I don't normally break down and cry, but I had my moment, and then I had to get up from it and say, you're going to have to dust off and get over it. You're going to have to process your way through. So if I were to talk to your listening audience today about process and engagement, it would be that if in fact you are the one in the family that is a caregiver, or the one that is probably in the future going to accept the role of the caregiver, you must understand the caregiver processes, the caregiver roles. And in this instance, yes, there is a process. And my job now as a caregiver coach is to help walk that through with families, and particularly in managing the sibling mess. Oh my God. Yeah.
That sibling mess.
Can
be quite something, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting. I served on the board for the Alzheimer's Association. I still am a speaker for them on many occasions. And one of the classes that seems to get a lot of attention is managing sibling relationships, where you learn about Too Tight Teddy, Too Busy Betty and Bob, Shame Sally, Resentful Ronnie, and Hardened Harry. So who are they? What are these personalities and these personas? Because don't you find it interesting within the family framework that there generally is an individual that is pretty sound financially?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you noticed? God has a way of taking the bubble of family and then slicing off various aspects. And our job as siblings is to begin to understand how to make that pie work for us.
Right.
And the process is putting it in the oven. And in this instance, the Too Tight Teddy guy, he's just not in my family, because it was a little bit different dynamics in terms of financially, but Imagine there is a need for your parent and your loved one to care for them.
Mm-hmm.
You thought you understood that your parent had it going on financially, and if you think that Medicare is going to take care of your loved one,
right?
No way.
No.
Yeah.
No way. That's why I learned about long-term care insurance. That's where I learned about annuities. That's where I can talk to people about their house, and we always talk about the spin down, but we need to talk about the tide. We need to talk about the tide with the power of attorney. We need to talk about the power of attorney, understand durable is different than medical. We need to understand all these various lanes, and to deal with the fact that if in fact most of our wealth is associated with our homes, right? And or our businesses, what is the estate plan? So in my teachings in dealing with the too tight Teddy, you've got to show responsibility and give them an assignment to help you through this process. Because a person in the family that has been managing money for a while will respect you. And in a lot of instances, caregivers would cry on my shoulder about they won't help me. Mom's not living with dignity because they won't help me. And so this is where they help coach you into a plan. But the first plan starts with you.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
It starts with acceptance.
Well, and I think it's so interesting as you were talking about the different functions of siblings. And you know, some have that compassion, right? Yeah. Some have the compassion to do the physical care.
Right.
Some have that capacity to do the financial care. And I love that analogy is we got to bring all these slices of pie together to make it work. And understanding, and I would say, Pat, also respecting each other's roles and each other's strength in this whole process.
You know what? And let me share with you some statistics that's particularly curious to this process. So I am being called in the D&I lane, in the SJE, the social justice lane, and I'm talking to a major corporate retailer. And I didn't know this at the time, but literally 2020, upon the research, I took a look at it. We got 142 million people over the age of 50. In 2030, we have 221 million people over the age of 50. So you've got a population that is aging so fast that within the personal goods sector in which they frame the United States, we're not the continent that's the big continent to go after that way. They know that we're aging. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the question became, how can we then teach and understand and help our families know what they need to do, to what you're saying, Tony, to accept the roles and then to understand where the resources are. And so in that instance, I begin to build out, right now I have 47 cities where there is a one pager of here's all of your resources in one place.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow, that's awesome.
So there are states that will pay for care, where you can become certified as a caregiver, and you will then be compensated. It's by state. It's under the Health and Human Services Department. In your role, Tony, in terms of the financial literacy aspect of it, let's get a class on financial literacy, and let's do even an insurance audit, because my mother's insurance did not pay out.
Wow.
Well, listen, I can talk about that. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because when my mother passed, she had 6 life insurance policies, right?
Wow.
And absolutely none of them paid. None of them paid. And I can remember we were sitting in Muskegon, Michigan, Muskegon Heights, Michigan. And this is the truth. The name of the funeral home and the owner is Mr. Toombs. Okay. So we're sitting there with Mr. Toombs, and we find this out. And I looked at my uncle. We looked each other in the eye. We make this contact, right? So and so I tell my dad, "We'll take care. I'm going to pay for the funeral." I was young. We was just out of school.
Yeah, we were
27 years old. We didn't have any kids yet. Lisa was we had Shakia, but Lisa was pregnant with Adrian. And and I'd said that, and my dad looked at me, and tears running down his face, and he said,
Wow.
"No, you won't. I will not let you pay for your own mother's funeral."
Wow.
I don't
Wow.
believe in that. He said, "I'll mortgage my house before I let you pay for your own mother's funeral."
Wow.
And that is the thing that kind of set me on this path of understanding life insurance, because I said, if my parents, who thought they had it all taken care of, thought that everything was going to be okay, I know my mother thought it was going to be okay. And they're not. There's so many more people out there like that. And
Right.
so that's what turned my passion to that piece of it.
Yes.
And then, and then I saw my grandmother have, dementia, and then, seeing this happen where people are going through that spin down process. And so, we need to educate people early on,
Yes.
so that we can avoid that. And that's why I that's a big part of the book. iPad Your Money is to protect your money from what I call medical aging, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very passionate about it. I think it's such an important piece of it, and we're just learning more and more about it as time goes, and we just got to get this information out to people.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I liked about one of the conversations that we had, Tony, is that I've got an upcoming session that I'm going to be addressing, because we have also, in the lane of all of these individuals aging, we have a lot of single women who are saying, single women or women who are married and now divorced, saying, well, I am the caregiver, who's going to care for me?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Being able to list out and understand where the money is.
Yeah.
Becomes extremely important in terms of how you structure your own caregiver process. And that's why I always talk first to the caregivers and say, before you deal with the role of you caring for your mom and your dad, I know you probably are in an emergency state right now, but you need to actually put the mask on first.
Right.
So it's I want you to think about, if nothing else, run parallel paths. If you doing with an audit on your parent, you need to do an audit on yourself.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to speak to someone in the financial advisor lane and understand the length of your money and how it's going to last. So where our parents probably had a term life insurance, we know that they cancel at a certain time, or you have to extend them, and you're only able to extend them in buckets. Who knew that? The man was in my house every Saturday morning with a little bitty book. And, my mom was giving up these certain dollars for my dad. And that's the way it was, right? And he was
$1,500 policy. $1,500. Right. The debit policy that they can buy. Yeah.
And so is a pre-need necessary? Is that a possibility? Actually, that became a solution for us, because I did the numbers and said, based upon, unfortunately, the progression of my mom's state within the Alzheimer's disease, and when I found out she was not insured, what's going to be our best course of action? But the caregivers have to learn how to take care of themselves while they are actually simultaneously taking care of the loved ones. And that's why within the sibling relationships, you want to begin to lean on the two tight teddies. And in reference to your point also, Tony, about spreading out the care, you want to also, I hate to say this, everybody doesn't believe this, but this is what I believe. When you become a caregiver for your parent, which is under the language of the Hebrew Bible, which is in Exodus, it talks about it being an honorable act. It talks about it in Ephesians, and it's an honorable act. It's actually the biggest thing that you could ever do in your life, where God says he will cover you.
Right.
Honor thy father and thy mother.
Right. Yeah. It's in the 10 Commandments, right?
Yeah.
Honor thy mother and father. Yeah. And that is a commandment with promise, and you shall have a long life. There's a covenant relationship there that if you honor your mother and father, that covenant. And it was they wanted in biblical time, and they wanted to be the one to take care of their parents. That was an honor for me to be the elder son and take my mother, take my parent into our home.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys just.
But no, you're right there. I think we're talking about Exodus 20 and 12.
Yeah.
So what happens is, if it's honorable, that means it's honorable for every sibling. So what help do I need? So let me give you an example. I have my financial person in the family. I call them the Too Tight Teddy. I just gave it the little cute name. You know, I like to say it where it sounds cute coming off the tongue, right? Shame Sally and resentful Ronnie.
Shame Sally. Okay.
So
Shame Sally. I want to know a little bit about Shame Sally.
So have you ever had the sibling that messed up really bad and no one can get over it? Is it every holiday? Here she come. Know what she gonna talk about? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This discussion about
right.
Yeah.
This discussion about honor needs to also link to the discussion about mercy, where Jesus teaches forgive and forget. You cannot carry the burden of your childhood woes into the lane of caring for your parent.
Wow.
Because when you accept the lead role as caregiver, you think that you're just caring for your parent and your loved one. You're caring for the foundation of your entire family.
Yes.
Patriarch. Yep.
It's patriarchal. It's matriarchal. And in that instance, what you're trying to do is you're trying to go back to Shame Sally and give them grace and mercy and speak to your overall need for them. You don't have to speak to what transpired. You don't have to speak to what happened. What you're able to do is you can speak to where their role can be with mom and dad. Right. The thing that I talk about, the parallel between Shame Sally and resentful Ronnie, which is even amazing, is resentful Ronnie runs into the lane of what daddy did for you and didn't do for her. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And you say to yourself, well, I know that was important and I know that was big, but since you were 16 and now you're 52, but you can't say it that way, right? You know, you can't bring it that way. What you really and truly want to do is you want to begin to empathize with where their pain is. See, you think that you're just caring for your loved one and you don't know where you're going to get this time from to take care of all these other individuals. But this is what I believe in. The same individual, the community that takes care of the child is going to be the same community that's going to take care of the adult as they age from cradle to grace. And that applies to that lead role that you take. Extending mercy to your siblings is the greatest gift that God can pass on through you to them for the purpose of your patriarchal and matriarchal family, so that everybody can get along.
Yeah.
And isn't that the ultimate goal, is that living in grace? I love that name. She ages well.
Thank you.
And isn't that the ultimate goal, is to honor our parents and have the last thing you want to do is for their children to be fighting,
right?
Be fighting
exactly.
and arguing and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the older I get, the more peace I want in my life, right? I'm looking for some
peace.
I don't know why. I didn't understand why Mama used to say that all the time. I just want some peace and quiet. I mean, when you're young, well, that's the last thing you want is peace and quiet. Now that I'm over that 50 mark, I'm like, I just want to sit down somewhere
and chill, right?
Well, you know, so as much as we want the peace and the quiet, one of the things I like about the Too Busy Betty and Bob, which is they are part of every organization known to mankind. But when it comes time for them to kind of give you a respite, you can't find them. And I tell people sometimes, believe it or not, children don't know, even as adults, how to get in and fit in. The opportunity to show up at one of their busy events and put mom and dad in a tux and a formal gown and sit at the table and have everybody look at them and say, look at your mom and your dad. Now, mind, you're only going to do that in the mild cognitive phase. You're not going to try to do that in terms of when your parent is getting closer toward hospice. But what you really want to do is you want to show them that there is life here still.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? The tips of the relationships is how you figure out where they are and then how you're able to move them accordingly. And so that you can get what you're looking for, Tony, which is that peace.
Yeah.
And that grace. And as a result, our siblings, at the time in which mom did pass, from every aspect of her funeral service, from the obituary to the poems, the way in which everybody ended up having a job, because I'm a marketing professional. If I don't know anything, I know how to take a pie, slice it up, and then spin these roles and recognize that, yeah, it's not going to be easy. I've got a young lady right now who was caregiving for her mom and caregiving for her grandmother, and she started the role in her 30s. She has been outside of the workforce for 8 years, guys.
Wow.
Impacts social life, impacts the possibility of her being married and having children. This is complicated. And you see the sibling dynamics that go on in terms of who doesn't want to do what. But sometimes you just got to help them through it also, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
With
good.
grace.
With grace.
With grace. With grace.
With grace. And a smile on your face.
That's right.
With grace and
Yeah.
smile on your face.
Yeah. Or tears. Or tears. My brother came down to give me a respite one day, and he went to my mother's room because it was his turn. And he's at my mother's bed, and I use doll therapy for my mom. And what that means is that for women in particular, you can sometimes give them a baby doll to soothe them. Believe it or not, it's very comforting to them. And so mom has her baby doll. I read her prayers, and my brother says, I got it. And he's with mom, and he's rubbing on her legs, and he's singing her a song. And I'm like, good, you got it. I'm going downstairs. I'm gonna watch the movie all the way through. Because mom had real bad sundowns. I mean, my ability to sleep at night was very questionable at times. And 5 minutes later, he's coming down the stairs. And I said, you going the wrong way, right? I mean, the way is up. The way is up. And he was in tears. He said, she doesn't remember my name.
Yeah.
And there's an aspect to that. I said, are you sure mommy doesn't remember your name and what happened? He tells me what transpired, and that he's rubbing on her. I'm gonna tell you guys what she said to him. She says, if my grandmother caught you in this room with me right now, you know what would happen, right? She went all the way back to her childhood days.
Wow.
Not knowing who he was. And it hurt him to the core. What was my job, guys?
Consoling him.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh no, I can't let him have that burden on himself. And I'm like, let's go back up together. Mommy remembers who you are from a different lane. So when mom forgot my name, she remembered one sibling's name. She went through a certain order. She didn't remember my name, but she remembered who I was.
Yeah.
And do you want to know what she called me? As I was crying because she finally forgets my name, and I'm thinking, this is hurting my feelings. She turned around and she looked at me and she called me mama.
Wow.
And she went, mama, mama, mama. And I tell people that that was my name from a role standpoint. So, and does that make sense?
Yeah. Because you were caring for her.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the lane of grace and mercy then was, I extended to my brother to help him go back upstairs, stay with him, don't watch the movie that I wanted to watch, okay? And let mommy then go to sleep. And he feels full that he's contributed. Does that make sense?
Right.
So then here's my turn. I'm crying like a child. I'm not going to pretend to y'all that I didn't cry. She had forgotten my name. How you going? And then I got a little angry and testy with God. How she going to forget my name?
Right.
Taking care of
rolling the deck. And God says that she needed to remember this one's name. And my mother then turned around and called me mama, mama. This discussion about honor, grace, and mercy, and forgiveness, and acceptance is going to get us through, along with what it is that you do, Tony, also, which is I spend a lot of time talking about families becoming whole financially. Yeah, absolutely.
So Pat, let's talk about that a little bit. And I'm glad you mentioned respite care too, because I think sometimes we forget that caregivers need that respite care.
Yes.
And I mean, we needed respite care from our kids when they were going. That's why we developed this thing called date night, right?
Right.
For the last 20 years, we still go on date night, right? But you know, financially, it can be pretty devastating.
Mhm.
You know, we know about the spend down process, and so what type of things do you do to help? And I love what you said about running on these two tracks together. While
Yes.
we're trying to figure out what to do with mom, at the same time, I need to be looking at I'm
Do I have my steps in
I'm
order?
20 years behind her, right?
Yeah.
I'm 20 years behind her. And we got this baby boomer generation, people born between 1946. Everyone talks about that, right?
Mhm.
Baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964,
1964. Yeah.
10,000 of them turning 65 every day.
Yes.
Mhm.
But guess what? Each of those baby boomers have a parent. Many of
Mhm.
them have a parent that is now in their 70s and 80s
80s. Yeah.
and beyond, and they find themselves in this kind of sandwich generation.
Mhm.
And then we have the finances on top of that. So, kind of walk us through what you recommend and the type of things that you talk about in your workshops.
So the number one thing that I try to do for caregivers initially is that once you accept the role, is you need to know what local resources are available to you that are actually going to help augment care based upon the level of care that's required. In my lane, I spend a lot of time in the dementia Alzheimer's lane. Okay.
Mhm.
So can your services of your caring for your parent, can it be underwritten? Can you then source someone else in the family that can be that person, the equivalent of getting an au pair, live in the house, and they're compensated accordingly? If it's dad or mom, actually, it could be, if we're talking about VA and what's available there. Understanding by state, under the Health and Human Services, what they qualify for as they move through the process. I want you to know and understand that if it's in the case of dementia and Alzheimer's, here are these finite lanes that you're going to travel, okay? And what I want you to do is, as you move through this lane, even in the lane of what you mentioned, which is hospice, I want you to also continuously advocate for hospice as an opportunity to change the financial scope of what it is that you're dealing with.
Mm.
A good example of that is the average Black family will have their loved one on hospice.
Oops.
We lost it again.
Yeah.
We know that in a second to come back. But
It can be 7 years that the average family actually has their loved one on hospice, to the Black family, which is only 2 to 4 weeks, not knowing that they can qualify. So I also then say the following: when you get your paperwork finished and you have the medical power of attorney as well, that means that you are going to have a conversation with that physician and that doctor about where your parent's status is, so that you can enact doctor's orders where you can. And then in the case of my mom, I didn't know about hospice at the time, but what I know now and what I teach now, that needs to be a continual conversation. Are they qualifying for hospice right now? And
Wow, that's
and,
interesting.
and that's very, very interesting in terms of dementia. So I was told and recommended to do that. So that's one area of concern. So remember, once again, we're dealing with the parallel paths. The cost that I had up front was actually staggering. So in my personal lane, it was about $3,300 a month for 2.5 years out of pocket. And I thank God, under the lane of honor, that I had the financial wherewithal in which to do that, right? So she could live the way we're now in Texas. We're not in Chicago.
Right.
So I had no idea how to get this done and care for her the way she needed to be cared for. Can I now help you understand what that's going to look for in your specific area? So is it someone who's going to be the caregiver that's to be paid for by the state? Do you know that that is possibly a grant program? Grants have to be continuously be reapplied for. Do we understand VA and the qualifications that if in fact they served in war times? I think they went all the way back to World War II, coming all the way forward. There's stipends for that, for you to care for your loved ones.
Yeah.
And then even in regards to making a decision and choice about the facility, how do I choose the right home for mom when it's not my house? And when I choose the facilities, what is my engagement? Because I was like this. It's my mother. You don't know her. At the time, for the place in which she stayed, she was the only African American. I had to teach them what I call a session I do called caregiver love language. What's her music? What should you talk to her about? So there are various different lanes of where I take caregivers through to deal with the financial aspect. And I am big on bringing in people like you, Tony, in this instance, to help people know where they can find their resources. Unfortunately, in the country today, there aren't a lot of options. Of course, there are no options when there's been a diagnosis of Alzheimer's.
Right.
But what I can say that people have not considered, Alzheimer's also can sometimes bring on other conditions. And so you may still want to also entertain what is sometimes called critical care insurance. You need to know about critical care insurance, because there may be something that happens that's not Alzheimer's related. It may be heart related. It may be stroke related. It's getting people to become so much more informed about the aging process. And the last thing is, as you talked about the boomer from the 1946 to 1964, my goal and my objective is to touch these millennials.
Yes.
Because 2030, they are no longer going to be in their 30s.
Right.
They're going, you coming into my lane, boo.
Right.
You know,
you're going to be here in a minute.
Right.
That's okay. So, I mean, I honor being in the 60s. I'm okay with that. But when the while you at work concept was started for the millennials who said, I'm concerned about my mother and them caring for grandparents, and that they are maybe not ready, but it's stressing her out so bad. So if for no other reason, the tears I had that day when I broke down, you know what I really was crying about? I was really crying about the fact I felt that I was all alone.
Right.
To let people know that you're really not. Let's get you these talks, these resources, these understandings to prepare you financially, prepare your loved ones financially. And there's a plethora of services. And I appreciate you sharing some aspect of your book with me, Tony, because point, I'm hoping everybody, I know I'll be buying your book when it comes out. Because that Medicare, Medicaid service arena, people really don't understand what's been down. So I'm in a little community called Arlington, Texas. I get the invitations that I know is not happening in the zip codes of where I'm from, back on the west side of Chicago, to help you understand how to navigate 5 years before you're 65.
You can't wait.
Right. You can't wait. Right.
You can't wait till you need to set those plans in place now.
That's correct.
In terms of not the insurance, the trust.
Yes.
You know, we recently learned about something called a Lady Bird Johnson deed.
The deed. Yeah, you know, transfer on death deed.
Yep, transfer upon death deed, and all these type of things that you need to have and put in place. And it's interesting. I was talking to a young lady the other day. She says, well, all the things I'm Googling and TikToking or whatever her resource was, is I really don't need to be doing any of this stuff until I get it. I was like, no, you need to set those plans out now.
Right.
So that they'll be in place, so that you can minimize the impact that some of these things are going to have on you. And maybe it's not even just you, but also it might be your parent
Yeah.
The resources that you're building may actually help you then. And we don't think about it. And in our community, in our culture, we don't do that. We put them back on the back porch and say, well, that's old, uncle.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that type of thing. And
But and that's what's so let's go to that.
mhm.
We grew up thinking that we just come home one day and get a phone call and they died.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work that way.
And it doesn't work that way. That's done. I mean, some of us may have been from the South where, because I was part of that whole thing when my parents moved up north. Aging in America, when I say that you're dealing with 221 million over the age of 50,
It's a lot of people.
that would be over half of the U.S. population.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my perspective is as we talk about this discussion, I hired a little intern this summer. I have to admit it was my granddaughter. And
You're smart.
yeah. I'm like, come on, I need your little computer skills, little girl. And she had to go through and source. I've got a document in front of me: paying for senior services, Medicaid, Veterans Administration, Patients Clinicians Handbook, financial planning, long distance caregiving, understanding memory loss. Mm-hmm. We need all of it so people can understand this and know where to go. We have to start, I believe, a lot earlier. I challenge everybody within this call to take the opportunity of the holidays. And in this instance, the one that is most understood of around the family and easier to manage is Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah. Thanksgiving. Yep.
To actually have an audit discussion, to have a discussion on who's got what. Because I'm going to be honest with you, in my family, I wanted to understand after my mom, who else is going to need help.
Right.
Yeah. We don't need to be surprised anymore.
No.
The surprises are done. That's done.
Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna save for our kids' college education and so on and so forth. How are we not, as a family, addressing a fund for aging? Is honestly not reasonable in today's time.
Wow, right. that is so good, Pat. Right there.
Yeah.
That's right there. If you're listening, that's worth it right here. We set up a college fund. We set up all these things, 529 plan. There's better stuff out there than that, y'all. But anyway, you have all these things you set up for if you go to college or that type of thing. One thing that's going to happen, we are all going to age.
Yes.
And when we age, you need to I love that idea of having a fund that can help with those processes. And guess what? If you don't age, the alternative is also expensive, right? You got the loss of life and loss of income and all these types of things. And so it's part of this human experience that we go through. And sometimes I think we don't realize it until maybe we've been through it with a parent or a grandparent or something like that. And then all of a sudden we realize it and said, okay, but I think what happens, Pat, sometimes is we do that and we're so emotionally and sometimes financially and physically exhausted from what we just went through that we don't take the time to say, now I need to do something about it.
And you know what? And that's the reason why in the midst of it, as I even purport the folks maintain diaries of ideas and what to do and how to do it throughout the whole process. That's why you want to run the parallel. You want to run, because while you're in the midst of addressing your parents' needs and seeking resources, you're then able to understand what's available to you, and you'll be able to even understand what's available to your other family members. So we've got a nuclear family. I've got a brother in Indianapolis. I have a sister in San Francisco. We're all over the place. It never left me, and that I am the oldest girl. What happens?
Right.
Who's on first?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fund helps. You know, not where we get to the funeral and people start trying to pull their monies together and pay for it. No, let's deal with that a little bit differently within our family framework, guys. Because we can, where families can get along that way.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony, I'm looking for you to help us be an anchor in this process also.
Yeah.
I'm here, Pat, because it's just so important. It's so just what I went through with my own mother, and then just seeing this happen in these discussions within families. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the families that I work with is, how we're going to do this, and fortunately, there's some families we've been able to say, okay, we can put something in place, but time is of the essence. And I can think of one family that I worked with, and we were able to really put something in place, because what happens a lot is that generation believes they are savers, right?
Yes.
And I worked with this family, and they saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, 100,000, 150,000, in case they ever needed this care. But now it's like, okay, well, how do we do it? And we were able to show them how to protect it. And actually, he even bought him a car, right? I gave him permission. Because what I mean is they hold that back because of the fear that I'm going to need this care. But if we can put a proper plan together and say, listen, you're 80 years old and you've never owned a Cadillac, and that's your dream, go buy yourself a Cadillac.
Exactly.
Right? And enjoy that, and let us put a plan in place so that if that care ever happens, that there's something there, so it doesn't take all that money. And those are the types of things that we can do.
Right. That's amazing. This conversation is right on point, because just yesterday, my daughter said, Mom, I need instructions on what to do if something like you or Dad gets sick, because my brother not gonna do it. So can you give me some instructions? She's 22.
And you know what,
Tony, but yeah,
I know, call Uncle Tony.
and that, you know what, one of the best examples of planning I've ever seen was a gentleman who had a major business here in Texas, and they had the not just the financial planner was in construct with the actual attorney, which is very, very powerful. Where the business was in a trust, they as an individual was in the trust. And at the time in which he got ill, nothing associated with the business had to do with his overall care.
Yeah.
Well, and see, that's what we say. You own nothing but control everything.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But control everything, and by using trust and doing some of those things, and it's just an important part. I can't believe it's already 9:00. I really think that we could take this conversation and continue going, because really we've just really tipped the iceberg, and I think it's just kind of ironic. It's not ironic, but it's kind of, when you think about that, we could go on for another hour talking about these things, is because it is so important.
Yes.
And it is such a major part of our financial footprint, is to make sure we have these things taken care of and have them in place. And so, Pat, I'm so excited. I did not know before AJ that there was even anyone out there doing caregiving coaching and doing the things that you do. And I listened to some of your interviews and about how she's aged as well, how to do it with dignity, how to do some of those things that we haven't even touched on. So we really got to get together and do some things and put together some seminars or something where we can talk about all aspects of it. Yeah. Because like we said, I have one aspect, you have another aspect, Michelle has another aspect, and we bring that all together for the glory and the benefit of God and for the people we serve.
That's right.
And that's really what it's all about. Serve first. Yeah.
Thank you. I can never get enough of actually doing these types of discussions. I can never get enough of it. And I'm looking forward to us doing just as you said, is putting together some overall operating clinics and get down deep and dirty into how can we help you? And to say to every family it's a lane of individuality. Do not be ashamed of where you are.
Right.
But
go ahead.
But be worried and ashamed if in fact you don't handle the business accordingly.
Yeah.
It's not about where you are now, it's about your future. And we're going to take care of you in your future.
So Pat, before we sign off, I want you just to let people know how to get in touch with you,
Sure.
how to tap into some of the resources you have. You have a book coming out that's going to be launching soon as well.
Yes. Yes.
Just tell people how they can engage, how they can pre-order the book, how do we get a hold of Coach Pat?
Oh my gosh. So I get the honor of doing one-on-one coaches with a variety of different people and individuals. And in that instance, I'm going to share with you an email address that you can reach out to me. And I'm going to share with you also my website. And then I'll talk about the book. So my actual email address you can reach me at is the brand name is She Ages Well. So that's SHEAGESWELL at gmail.com. The website is also sheageswell.com. And on that, you are able to look under caregiver advice and you'll see all of these various links for credible information that's out there as well. And in reference to the book, I would love an opportunity, Tony, to talk with you more about it. It's called Finding New Tomorrows. So it came as a result of a podcast that was done with my good friend, Sybil Wilkes. And we've got a podcast out that runs on Cafe Mocha, which is the Sheila Eldridge platform. And the takeaway was just this, being prepared. So that's out in November.
All right.
Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Yay. And it is it's kind of structured just like the talk today. It is very problem solution. It's a lot of humor because it was cray sometimes, guys, in this process.
Yeah.
But it's solutions as well. So I'm looking forward to people reaching out and talking to me however they feel so moved. I'm super excited that we now are connected. You have me for life.
Awesome.
And by the way, the next Caribbean trip or wherever y'all going, I think family need to extend to other people. Just saying. Am I dropping the love here?
Right.
Let's help people learn how to age well for generations to come.
Yeah, I love that. Let's age well physically, spiritually, financially, emotionally, all of that. Let's age well.
Absolutely.
I love that. That just speaks to just dignity and it's just something there's something spiritual about that. She ages well.
Yeah.
And and it's just awesome, Pat. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. It's a blessing. I look forward to us to continuing having conversations and how we can work together to make a difference in people's lives. And it's just even I think about the three of us. We've all been touched by this process.
Yes.
Early on in my life, I mean, when I was a baby, my mom and dad moved my aunt in with us. She was 86 years old.
Wow.
I mean, she was 104 when she passed.
Wow.
And she lived with us after her husband died in Mississippi. Mom and dad went down there and moved her in, built a room, other cultures call it a what do they call it? A mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law suite.
Mother-in-law. Call it auntie's room, right? So
auntie's room.
In the back of the house, and she lived with us. And when I think about that, and it's interesting, I was talking, we go into a whole nother story, but my childhood doctor's friend actually was Marlon's uncle, right? In Muskegon, small world. And I was talking to his son at Marlon's house the other day. And I was telling him about how his dad would come to our house to see my aunt.
Wow.
He'd bring his doctor bag. And when she got to the point where she couldn't go to those doctor visits, he came to the house to see her.
Wow.
And I just tell them that's your dad's legacy in my family. But all of this, we've all been touched by it. That's my point. We've all been touched by it. And so let's take action.
Yes.
So contact Pat, contact us at info at the Real Money Coach. There's wonderful products that you can start putting in place now. There's things that you can do even outside that I think Pat is talking about, how we can prepare even emotionally for that time. Having a plan, having a savings account, having those things in place, I think would be awesome. Michelle, any final words from you? Or
I mean, this was amazing. You know, I feel like I have so many friends right now who are going through something with an aging parent or, you know, someone, their loved one in their life. And we are the sandwich generation because, you know, we're trying to raise these young adults. And then we have these older people that we really love and care about. And financially, what can we do to help them? How can we begin to have these conversations?
Right.
And one of the ways I'm going to do it is actually share this video.
Oh.
So that's the action I'm going to take tonight. I will probably be sending it out to about 10 people because they need to contact Pat. Yes.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
That's it right there. So I'm going to challenge everyone who's watching this now, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this the recording, by tomorrow, 24 hours, it'll be on YouTube. You can go to Real Money Coach or YouTube/Real Money Coach, and you can get this and you can send it. And please remember, these weekly shows can be an asset. Sometimes I go back to the very first show that we had, and I'll send that to someone and say, here's something great for you to watch that will help you in this particular area that we're talking about. So I encourage you to do that. Again, I want to just give my appreciation to Pat Bailey. She ages well. That's it right there. She ages well at Gmail, sheageswell.com. And of course, to my good friend, Michelle Mitchell, much love for her and her family, and Tony, Antonio, and Danielle, my god kids, and of course, shout out to my own family, my wife Elisa, I love so much, and my mother-in-law, my mother. I don't call her mother-in-law, my mom, who, you know, we're here, right, and we're going through this transition. And so I want to give a shout out to all of them, all of our family. You know, we love you all. God is with us as we go through this transition. My kids, you know, this is their great grandma, even Cameron, has quality time with her. So listen, God bless you. Thank you for tuning in. Listen, we will be back here again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to bring a special guest. We're going to have someone to talk to you. And then the next day, I'm getting on an airplane, y'all. So y'all better come, because I'm going to be in rare form. I'm going to be really excited that day, because I'm going to be getting away the next day. So listen, God bless you. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Real Money Coach.